And then fast forward 60 days, I was then attempted to be delivered a annual performance review that left the end rating of a needs improvement. I also felt frustration and anger.
What did he say specifically that caused you to feel like you were getting hot under the collar?
So the words that I saw, loud and aggression.
Wow.
I was speechless. I politely asked that we halt the conversation, discontinue the meeting, halt the conversation, so that I could have some time to review the things that he had written in this, so that I could collect my thoughts, take some time to review it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Braxton, and I am the host of Coffee No Cream, a podcast unapologetically dedicated to Black women who face challenges and situations and things that happen to us just because we are Black women. And if you know, you know, no need to explain, you just get it. These are moments I like to call coffee no cream moments. And each week we share a coffee no cream moment from either myself or one of my guests who is always going to be a bomb-ass Black woman every single time. Now, today we are going to be talking about performance reviews, and I have an amazing guest for you, a friend of mine who is very dear to me, and a rock star, kick-ass HR professional with over 25 years of experience. Now, here's the thing about performance reviews. I myself have had bad performance reviews. And especially when I was first getting started, I remember my first performance review was not good. I worked at this crazy ad agency back in the day. And that place was like Melrose Place. I mean, all of us were young. We were like 21, 22, up to whatever, 25, running around in too short of skirts and scantily clad little outfits. It was a crazy place. It was super fun, but it was crazy. And we had this crazy, I would tell this woman this today, this crazy manager. I'm not going to say her name but if anybody knows me and they know where I work, they know who this person was. She was like the devil. Anyway, I got my very first performance review, which was not good. I was confused. I didn't understand. I thought I was doing well. And really, a lot of it was nonsensical. And I didn't have every performance review be bad, but this one was definitely a shock. And as a newbie in the game, I didn't know what to do. And at that time, I didn't even think to consider, well, I probably did think to consider it was racial, but I still took it personally. Like it was like a direct attack on me, a direct attack on my work, how I worked, my skills, my intelligence, all of those things. And it happened continually in my career a few different times. I worked at another advertising agency. The way you would get reviewed there is they would send around a grade report. So people who didn't even work with you could grade you and give you an A, B, C, D, or an F. And I remember one year I was told I got 2 Fs from 2 people, which was really peculiar because I was working in a subsidiary and we were very slow. So I wasn't even really working with anybody very much. We were working on trying to get new business, but I wasn't really working with anyone. But, you know, people could just review you because they wanted to poorly. So, you know, that was a crazy situation. Lots of crazy things have happened to me in my career. So that's why I feel very strongly about the topic that we're going to have today. So before we get started, I want to share with you some statistics that I looked up, and I'm going to read them to you that really substantiate and back up what us Black women know to be true, but somebody thought it was important enough to study it, and I'm going to share this with you now. So Harvard Kennedy School of Research did a review on Black women in the workplace, okay? And I'm just going to read down the list. I don't have these memorized. I'm reading. Black women working on teams with more white colleagues were more likely to be labeled as low performers in first performance reviews. That happened to me. For every 14 percentage point increase in white coworkers, Black women's turnover increased by 10.6 percentage points. Black women assigned to whiter teams reported fewer billable hours and more training hours. The largest turnover gap was between Black and white women at 8.9 percentage points. Black women were the only demographic group significantly affected by team racial composition. And finally, Black women's turnover decreased when working with more Black colleagues. Now, I also found some research on McKinsey LeanIn research. This was a research study from 2018 to 2024. And I'll tell you what they found. In 2024, only 54 Black women were promoted for every 100 men, compared to 89 white women. So Black women's promotion rates declined sharply after peaking at 96 per 100 in 2022, which makes sense because we were big, strong, heavy on DEI back in 21, 22, and then, that kind of just dropped off. Only 35% of Black women reported that their manager promotes their contributions. 41% of Black women never have substantive interactions with senior leaders. Monique's going to talk about that. And 40% of Black women have had their judgment questioned in their area of expertise. That happens to me, and I work for myself. So that's definitely a thing. Black women consistently underperform in promotions compared to women of other races. And the promotion gap for Black women has only worsened from 2018 to 2024, despite that temporary improvement in 21-22 that I mentioned earlier. So let me tell you a little bit about Monique McKinney. Monique is a visionary. She is a force. She's an accomplished HR consultant and a dynamic business leader and steadfast advocate for career success and empowerment. She's also a proud St. Louis native like myself. And I actually met Monique when we did this diverse business accelerator program, and we were still like on Zoom, and I met Monique on Zoom, and then we just kind of got together and clicked ever since. So this is a dear friend of mine, and I am so excited to have her on the podcast. But more about Monique, let me tell you more. Monique is the founder and CEO of the MCM Group LLC, which is a certified women business enterprise, and she spent over 25 years revolutionizing talent management, diversity recruitment, and workforce strategy. Monique says her passion is shattering glass ceilings, particularly in male-dominated industries. And that fuels her mission to provide young women with access to non-traditional career paths and living wage opportunities. So we love that. It's right in alignment with what we're trying to do here at Coffee No Cream. I love it. She has an impressive career. She has had influential roles at Harris Stowe State University, Rung for Women here in St. Louis, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, East St. Louis Center, Boeing, and BJC Healthcare. She has also collaborated with transformative organizations like the Urban League, Women's Empowerment Business Center of St. Louis, and AIM Employers Association. Monique is deeply rooted in the community here in St. Louis. She's involved with the NAACP, Iota Phi Lambda Sorority Incorporated, the National Council of Negro Women, and also the St. Louis Moles. So this woman is busy, she is booked, but she made time to come to the Coffee No Cream podcast and tell us her Coffee No Cream moment, and also just arm you with a wealth of information when it comes to performance reviews and your rights as an employee in a corporate environment. So please like and share this video, forward it to people who you know can benefit from this, and save it also, because We recorded this a few months ago and it's just now going up, but this is information that I wished I would have had that a lot of us don't know. Even those of us who have been working for many, many, many years, there are ways to deal with bias in the workplace, and Monique is going to take us through it. So I hope you enjoy the show, and I'll see you over there. Welcome, Monique McKinney. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you, Erin Braxton?
So good. So I just read a very robust bio telling everyone all the amazing things that you've been up to, but give everybody kind of like the day to day. What do you do on a day to day basis?
Absolutely. So I am pretty much an HR altruist, right? I do all things HR, but my expertise fall in the areas of strategic HR management. So anything dealing with HR policies and procedures, all the way to talent acquisition, staffing, and recruitment. Those are my true loves.
And DEI, correct?
And diversity include, of course, right?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
A big subject these days. Well, as you know, you are here to share with us on Coffee No Cream, your Coffee No Cream moment. So, for those of you who are listening for the first time, Coffee No Cream moments are those moments that happen to us as Black women. These moments are things that we know happen to us in business or in life simply because we are a Black woman. If you saw my intro episode, you will have heard one of my very interesting Coffee No Cream moments when a client accused me of providing Toyota level services at a Lexus price, which is crazy. And my goal with this podcast is to share with other Black women who meet these same types of crazy interactions where they just don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond. They're trying to keep their anger in check because it's infuriating. But today, Monique is our HR queen, and I'm sure she has seen and heard a lot. She herself is going to share with us one of her Coffee No Cream moments. I know a little bit about it. I don't know the whole story. So I'm listening here for the first time, just like you. So Monique, I'm going to let you share your Coffee No Cream moment. I'm going to interrupt you sometimes to maybe like get a little more or like back up and explain, but I'll let you take it over. Tell us your Coffee No Cream moment. Give us the story.
Absolutely. So sitting down with the president of the hospital of an organization in which I previously supported as the HR lead, and in an attempt for the president to give me an annual review. And as we all know that in the part of giving an annual review, um, you should know and expect what will be on your review, right? You typically have an understanding of your job description. Typically, in most organizations, you sign it. And in a lot of organizations, too, you have, probationary periods or 90-day reviews. And so I successfully was able to maneuver through the first, a good 8 months before I was given a 90-day review, which I exceeded all expectations, no needs improvement. And then fast forward 60 days, I was then attempted to be delivered a annual performance review that left the end rating of a needs improvement. And so you can imagine my surprise sitting down with this new president and seeing that overall rating, and then being able to dissect that review to to um, to show the evidence in which he felt there were some needs improvement. So as I was sitting there, I also felt my ears getting very warm. I felt frustration and anger. And I knew at that moment that I had to check myself. I had to be in control of my emotions to be able to push through this conversation in which I totally disagree with.
Okay, let me stop
As
you really quick. Let me just ask you a
mhm,
question. Okay, so you're sitting there, you've had the first 90-day review, correct? And this is your
that is
second
correct.
review 60 days after that. Okay, so you're telling us, you're getting warm, you're feeling stuff, but what did he say
Yeah,
specifically that caused you to feel like you were getting hot under the collar?
sure. So the words that I saw, loud and aggression,
Wow.
and in writing, in an annual performance review.
Did he
And
actually say those words as well, or did he just hide behind the paper?
hide behind the paper.
Okay.
So the words were never expressed verbally, they were written. And so, as I was, our reviews are in totality, 4 pages. And as I was reviewing the review and I was reading all of the things that he noted that I was doing very well, he also took the time to characterize what he felt certain attributes or behaviors as being loud and I guess at some point some aggression being shown. And then it proceeded to go into his explanation why. And really, Erin, I couldn't sit and listen to
Hold
the
on.
explanation
Hold
why.
on. So it said loud and aggressive. You're reading the words on the page that say loud, aggressive. They've never brought this to you before. That nobody's ever said anything.
No
Um,
feedback.
was he, when he was talking about the areas in which you needed approval or improvement on, he did not say, did he repeat those words? Did he
He did
say
not.
he did not?
He did
Okay.
not.
He did not. Um, okay. So like obviously those are very stereotypical. Those are some strong words. Like those are words that one would think that the president of a
A
hospital
hospital.
would know
Hmm.
not to say to a black woman, because at some point on his way to climbing the ladder to becoming a president, he would have had some sort of sensitivity training or something to know better than to say that, okay? Regardless of if it's true, which you have I don't believe that. Obviously, I know you. Um you're very passionate, like you've told me. That's the word I would use for
Sure.
you. So you've been told you are loud and aggressive. He hasn't repeated those words. Do you kind of like skim over them during the like review process and just try to?
Yeah. So I he did not recite those words specifically for whatever reason.
And he was the
He
one who wrote those words. It was
and he
him.
was the one that prepared the review, wrote the review, etc. He called the meeting, and I thought but that didn't surprise me because my experience in all of the 20 plus years that I've been in HR, that I've been in most capacity, the majority of my career, a leader or managing staff. Um, I too have gone through cultural diversity training, sensitivity training, DE&I training. So we know the lingos and the parameters that may lead to being culturally insensitive. And
Sure.
so we know what those safeguards are, right? And so you're absolutely correct, right? You should know better
Right.
as a president of a hospital, a $6 million hospital that is. And so I was taken back. I was speechless.
So you're
Now
shocked. You're like in shock sitting
and
there.
I'm not speechless a lot. Like I
No,
always got something
no,
to say.
always, all the time.
So, so this took me, um, this, this really took me to a different place that I had not been in quite a long time in my HR career. But then also, a deep for just deeper inner thought for me was how did I get here? How did this how did these two words begin to lead him to rating me as an underperformer,
Right.
right? And And what everything that I've read, I mean, you can research, there's multiple white papers, conversation, books, Harvard reviews on stereotypical language attributed to Black women. And at the very top, you will see loud, you will see yelling, you will see sometimes aggressive behavior. And what I then learned at that time is that I could not show that type of emotion. So I politely asked that we halt the conversation, discontinue the meeting, halt the conversation, so that I could have some time to review the things that he had written in this performance review. That was my first time seeing it, so that I could collect my thoughts and really, you know, take some time to review it. I
Right.
wasn't shocked, really. In my entire career, I've never been called loud and have been tagged with acting aggressive, um, and never been given that feedback, right? And so I just um, I'm still a little speechless to this day about it. And then seeing it in writing, I think it hits a little different when you see it in writing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like hurtful or something. I feel like it is very hurtful because there's nothing like feeling like you're doing a good job, like into your job, passionate, you're trying to do your very best for these people, and they are feeling some kind of way about
Yeah,
you the whole time.
yeah,
And they haven't said anything. And the thing is, I have been the victim of not great reviews. I mean, I worked for other people 11 years of my career. That was that. And I'm way past 11 years in a career.
yeah,
And, I just couldn't take it. But I still feel like I was being reviewed and critiqued more harshly by clients, potential clients, all of that over the years. And this is just such a familiar topic. And just as I'm sitting with you here, in the past month, I have two other people in my life, because it's January now. End of the year is obviously review time, but I have heard from two other people who are dealing with the same thing, these reviews, right? So you said, and one of them said something very similar, like, this was never brought to your attention. Like you never heard this before, right?
right.
This
That
is
is
the first
correct.
time you're hearing about this.
Yeah. And statistics show, Erin, right, that I was just reading an article on LinkedIn yesterday about how Black women over 50% of the time receive negative reviews compared to their counterparts. So inadequacy or needs improvement or anything that is constructive enough for them not to be promoted, for them not to be slotted in that 9 box to be a high performer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those are real, true statistics. So this is not something that we're making up,
No.
right?
And anybody
Um,
listening knows that. Like, you know, I and I'm sorry to interrupt, but like I am not a person that works for people well, right?
yeah,
I do good work, but I don't do well in the corporate environment. I've never been that girl. And you know, we do have friends, or you do know people who've done very well in corporate, or they've managed to like navigate through it
sure.
without issue. But I think there so often are situations where we do not. You've got these supervisors coming from wherever it is they come from with biases and all of the things. And I always used to take it very personal when I would be given this negative feedback, because I would feel like it was me, that I would take it in. Like I
Sure.
really
Yeah.
wasn't good at
Yeah.
my job, or I wasn't very good. And people have a way of putting these things out into the atmosphere, especially in a corporate environment, and they have a way of taking on a life of their own,
Yeah, yeah,
amongst other people in the environment. So it's damaging, not
yeah.
just for you at the time, but also um, to your success, your ability to succeed in that environment, right?
Sure. And it
So
doesn't happen to our white counterparts that way. There is no that it is such disparate treatment when we're talking about an environment that should be inclusive and not exclusive. And we're talking about equality, right? We do not, our white counterparts do not get characterized with such words, right? And that is fact. And so what is so damaging here is that you have evidence, you have artifacts that demonstrate that there is clearly something that is off, right? The evidence show that this person very well is a high performer, but these words, these biases, these sometimes maybe an interaction that went unchecked or some feedback that was not given, but lands on the annual performance review. And us as HR practitioner know that immediately lends itself to being an ineffective performance review.
sure.
You should never receive feedback in an annual performance review, and that's the first time that you've heard about it. So good leaders, good managers, right? You have these cyclical conversations all year. You have these appreciative and constructive feedback sessions all year with staff. It's not at the annual performance review that they learn something new.
This is so, like, what you're saying is literally identical to the other women that I've talked to in this past month who have dealt with this. They're like, this is the first time I'm hearing that. One said her manager just straight up lied. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
because
sure.
she had like quarterly check-ins,
Yeah,
never said anything, and then put on her annual review,
yeah.
just made up lies. And fortunately,
Hmm.
she had a paper trail. We're going to talk about that and how to deal with that in a minute. But let's go back to, because they lie. And it's just
It
like,
was lies.
oh my God.
Just
And
again, evidence that was not substantiated, not supported. And he couldn't supply any because I asked
they don't
for
have
that.
anything. They don't have anything.
No,
Yeah.
no evidence, no facts, no support. And so fast forward to where it ended, right?
Well, wait, let
Is,
me go back
oh,
before
okay,
that. Okay,
sure.
before we go to that. So this is the first time you're hearing it. In
Hmm.
that moment, you said you were angry. You're starting to feel warm, like you were having a physical reaction
Hmm.
to this information. So what did you do in the moment?
Yeah. So in that moment, as I could review the 4-page document, and then, um, he had the nerve to have like an attachment as if in an addendum to a 3 pages of additional information, feedback that he wanted to provide, that it was
From
the first
where?
time,
From
just
who?
things that was documenting, note to file on his computer that
Ooh, so he
he,
had been keeping like a
yeah,
paper
like a,
trail.
hmm
Mm.
yeah. And so when you talked about lies, one of the things that struck me was one of on the this addendum, if you will, was his call out around HR not being available for employees on a particular day in which the staff spent the morning volunteering at a turkey drive for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was rather funny as well because he knew that we all were, the whole staff and team were going to be volunteering, but B, as you talked about lies, that we have cameras in our hospital, so you can see when someone enters and exits the hospital. And I said to the leader, I said, we were here on that day. Where did you get this information that we were not here for our employees? And at that moment, it was just silence, because that wasn't the truth. And oftentimes, and I go back to this again, where we as Black women are subjugated to false narratives, to untruths, to lies, to being manipulated or characterized as the aggressor. That is just simply not true. It's simply not the case. And so when asked for evidence and facts, and then you don't get that, that leaves you then with a different feeling, right? Because in that meeting, I could not continue the meeting. I said, can we please reschedule this meeting? Stop, so that I can have the opportunity to review some of these things, to be able to form a rebuttal, because this was the first time that I was hearing of it. And he was like, oh, well, let me finish reading. I say, no need to finish reading. I can read the remainder of this document, but I would like to stop here so that I can review it and get back to you.
So as an HR professional, as an expert in HR, is that something that you would recommend people do? Because this is,
Yes,
this is
I
not,
would.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
not obligated in that sense to stay no employee is obligated by law to take any type of behavior that may feel hostile or harassing. Okay. So when you use words such as angry and aggression, as I was characterized, that as a human being are characterizations that we consider as HR professionals as constructive, but
Right.
but also very personal.
Sure.
So they're not tangible things, and especially if there's no evidence
And
of it.
especially with the history of, or the perceived behaviors of African American women, period.
That are confident.
We're
right?
angry
That are
Black
confident.
women. We're aggressive. We're not feminine, as our white counterparts.
Right.
And then when a white man, I didn't clarify that, but he was a white man giving you this
He's a white
review,
man. Mhm.
says this to you, like you've just been, and anybody who knows you, like, because I know you, I've talked to you about work before. When you talk about work, I get to see you in a different light. You get very passionate about work. You are passionate about work. That's what I would call it. It's like, because even I have made fun of you in the past and be like, God, you are so into your job, right?
Right.
Like, gosh, all right, girl, I hear it.
Yeah.
That's cool, right? Because I guess I'm into my job too, but you were just like really passionate about this stuff. And for somebody to take that and then twist it and make it appear as though you're being
personal attack,
aggressive and angry. Yeah, it is a personal attack against you.
That is a personal attack, because to my point, my white counterparts would not, they have not, and would never ever be characterized with those words.
Because I mean, I've seen white women will come into the office, and not all, but they start, they're crying, they use their tears, they do all of the things. Yeah. We are just not conditioned to do that.
But if we're confident, we're loud. If we are highly motivated or ambitious, we're aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
If we are, really understanding or trying to get our point across. Because the other thing that, as I'm thinking about this review, one thing that I know true about myself is that sometimes I could be very wordy. I could be very verbose. And for me, it is getting to the level of understanding, going from the root to how we got here today. So
Mm.
sometimes I'm painting, most times, a picture so that you can have a holistic understanding. But instead of being called very thorough and tactical, I am, being characterized as wordy or not being able to execute a clear thought, doesn't
Wow, that's what he said?
understand well, he basically said I take too long to get my thought across. Like woman, hurry up and speak,
Wow.
right?
Okay.
And it's kind of the same thing that men oftentimes tell women: smile,
Yeah.
smile. When they walk up, just smile. Quit telling women to smile. You don't tell men to
Yeah.
smile.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it is using unfortunately, white men do not have they have not been experienced enough, um, to have a circle or be surrounded with confident Black women and to understand how to describe that in a workplace versus making it a personal attack and making it culturally insensitive.
Right.
Um, and so I just think that we should all be on the same playing field, but we are not. There is an assault on DE&I. So we can see these things. You can just pull it up on LinkedIn, begin to come more and more to the surface. And as Black women, we need to, this is why this podcast is so important. We need to be very upfront and open about speaking about these things as leaders.
And especially right now, I think after this election, people are going to be more emboldened to pull this type of crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
been going on, but
Long time.
but the aggression word, I mean, I had somebody call me aggressive. I'm sure more than once because I can be loud. I'm definitely not.
You're very driven,
Yeah,
right?
somebody said you're no shrinking wallflower. No, I'm not.
No,
One time
you're not.
older white woman, I was at Rite Aid when I lived in LA, and woman was not in the line. Everybody was in the line, and she just goes up to the front and I just walked up and I was
Privilege.
like, "Excuse me." I was like, "The line starts back there." Just like that. "Excuse me." "Well, you're very aggressive." I was just like,
You
and
can't even talk to
we're
people.
just like, what? And then
Yeah,
this white guy had said, "I think she was very nice to you." "Well, you
yeah,
two are just together." And I'm like, it was crazy. I was just
yeah,
like, lady, just, you know what? Go. You know what?
yeah.
Just jump 10 people. But yeah. It's just like, why did you choose to use that word with me? Now, I said it just like, "Excuse me. Hey, hi."
Hmm.
Just,
Yeah.
but
Well,
you can't even, like you said, you can't even talk if you try to say anything
yeah,
that is
it's
counteractive
aggressive.
to, or counters what they're doing.
That's
Then
aggression.
it's aggression, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's crazy. Just like, what?
It's triggering for Black
Yeah.
women. It's also very triggering for men, for Black men as well. And I think oftentimes people that non-colored people know that those are triggering words and put sometimes people of color in those spaces to get a reaction. And so, and my whole thought was not to give not give any more meat or skin what he thought to these two words. I just dismantled them altogether. And
So you
so
just ended it.
I ended it and was like, you know what? I'm now this is on my terms. So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to um re- rebut this information and sit back down with you to be on my terms. And so um we did not get that far. to sit back down because I ended up seeking counsel from advisement of, just other HR practitioners about the words that were used, and just some of the things that I would bring to his attention that we just weren't in compliance with. So we're talking things that, OSHA would consider that could potentially be whistleblower things, right? So things that
OSHA, tell everybody what OSHA is.
yeah, so occupational safety and health act.
Okay.
And so they're the federal organization that supports, when employees have information that about an organization that is not safe, it's unethical, they're not compliant around something, that allows them to tell without fear of retaliation, right? So there's protections there.
So, okay, so you left the meeting, you couldn't, you just needed to go somewhere and gather yourself and get your thoughts together and really absorb and digest the contents of that review, which you did. And now this is going to happen to a lot of people. People are going to have things said to them. You said you sought counsel in other HR professionals. What do you recommend for other people who, don't have those resources or who are afraid about their standing in this job and all of those things?
Yeah. My recommendation as an HR practitioner would be you seek to talk to some type of legal counsel or that third party agency. Agency
can you explain the why legal counsel is necessary in this particular situation or when people have these types of reviews that are not positive?
Sure. So the reason that you would want to seek out legal counsel is because there very well could be laws that have been violated around you being retaliated against because of your sex, your national origin, your color, your race, where you live, how old you are. If you are a whistleblower, right? So a whistleblower essentially is, I am going to report this unsafe condition or hazard. So all of those things are protected by federal laws. And so an average person may not know what all of those laws are. So that's why as a practitioner, I am quasi-legal, not legal. I don't operate with bar license and have to sit for a test, but I work very closely and have over the last 20 years directly with attorneys. So I understand the law. And so in my case, I wanted to make sure that I understood if I had a case or not to bring forth around really being retaliated against with the words of angry and aggression in a performance review.
What were you afraid of? Like you're saying retaliated against. So explain that because I think that, we live in a very litigious society. People are always trying to sue people and different things like that, which, sometimes it's necessary. A lot of times it's necessary, but we don't want to send people on a goose chase. We want to make sure that they have a clear understanding of when this might be something they want to do.
Sure. So retaliatory behavior is illegal in all forms, especially in the workplace, right?
So what was the retaliatory behavior though in this situation? Tell me.
So for me, it was receiving a 90-day review with all satisfactory performance, no needs improvement. and then going all bad in less than 60 days in a review. And so that was one kind of red flag for me, that this could be retaliation because of, number two, things that I brought forth to him that he did not like.
Now we get it. Okay.
Operational deficiencies, regulatory deficiencies, HR deficiencies. And so very often you hear about employees being told, so as an example, you are told to do something that you feel in your heart of hearts is not right, but you do it because you don't want to get fired.
Right.
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 So if you don't do it, right, and you report it, and then you're written up or fired, that could very well be retaliation.
Sure. Okay. So you were worried about
that
this being retaliation for the things that you had brought up in this organization. I
Absolutely.
got it. So that was that. Okay. You made that very clear. Okay, cool. Because before I was just like, okay, so, we went from, he said you were aggressive and loud to I sought counsel. And we're just trying to like piece the story together.
Yeah. Because the other thing is that it's illegal to discriminate against a section of people. And so for without me going into all the legality, we call it Title VII, Civil Rights Act, Title VII. So you can Google it, but basically it is the protections for people that are of color, people that are protected by religion, people that are protected by their race, people are protected by the national origin, their sex, etc. So for me, being a woman over 40 of color, triple, as we call it, triple whammy, over 40, female and Black, I felt that there was something there. Right. I didn't quite know what it was, but I felt that there was something there. Hence why I sought legal counsel. Right. And so for others may not be able to afford that. So there's other avenues. There's the Missouri Human Rights Commission, free. You can call, have a conversation. You can call the EEOC, free, have a conversation. You can call the Fair Labor Standards Act, file a complaint for free. So you don't always have to go I got to find an attorney. There is so much information on those 3 sites about the things that we're talking about here that will lead you to the right resolve for where you should go next, right? So for me, being experienced, I just kind of understand that pathway already.
So I think there's a lot of fear once this is happening, you're in this situation, well, let's just go back to this. Well, I'm going to ask you this question because I don't know, this is kind of like, this is something very, I guess, recent that has happened. So you're still like in the middle of it. But for the regular person who has these things happen, what do you recommend that people should be asking for in the course of a year? If they know they're getting reviews, documentation, paper trailing, CYA,
Absolutely.
all the things.
Yeah.
What do you recommend that people do to kind of prevent the lies, the bias on the review, all of those sorts of things, so that, maybe we can kind of prevent this or make it difficult for somebody to kind of just put that label on your paperwork.
Yeah. Or even making it, even creating the climate to allowing it to be okay. Because there is no climate in which discrimination and retaliation is okay. So for what I would recommend are a few things. And that we know to be very true, especially if you get to the point of, let's say, filing a complaint or seeking legal counsel. And this is some of the information that they will ask for, these artifacts, if you will, evidence. So keeping good documentation of your records. If you are emailing information that may or may not be proprietary. You talked about CYA, but having that backup documentation for any claims or any situations or anything that is off-putting, any complaints, you want to make sure that you're keeping very good records of
Sort
those.
of like a CYA journal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition, right, get things in writing. We oftentimes will have one-on-one conversations with people in person and never write it down. We don't remember times, dates, what we talked about. Put it in writing. I cannot stress that enough. So if you're having a meeting with a person, subordinate, or a leader, follow it up with a synopsis of what the meeting was about, just to make sure that you have clarity around what that meeting entailed. In addition to that, right, if you ever feel, if employees ever feel that they don't want to sit down with a leader because it's contentious, because they're uncomfortable, because they feel like there may be some retaliatory behavior exhibited, ask for a third party. That is not against the law. It is completely constitutional for you to ask for someone else, especially if you're in a union environment, right? It's highly allowed in certain contracts. But even beyond that, ask for someone else to be involved in those conversations and document that conversation as well. Ask for your feedback. If you're not getting feedback, ask for it.
Because before the review. Before.
As often as you can, okay. Right? So systematically, HR practitioners such as myself would say monthly. You should be sitting down, having appreciative and constructive feedback conversations with your leadership, your managers, your staff, your subordinates. Monthly, I highly suggest biweekly. I met with my staff like every day, because when we sat down in our weekly one-on-ones, it was just kind of like, okay, projects, tasks. We didn't really have to get into the nitty-gritty things because I was actively staying involved as a leader.
Right.
So that's just me. But other leaders like it more on a scheduled basis, right? Where they, have a weekly conversation. I said having a week or monthly is better than having none at all.
No, that's good information. So this came up also in some of my recent conversations. So you get these reviews, they want you to sign them, and you don't agree. What?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I say, by law, you don't have to sign them. And what I encourage employees and managers is alike, in that section where it says, employee signature, I employ and empower employees to say, I disagree with the rating and I refuse to sign. For those leaders that deal with employees that very well feel like they've given an effective review and the employee still refuses to sign, the leaders should write in those spaces where the signature is required, employee, you've refused to sign. You're not required to sign those documents. But does that mean that it does not, will it land in your employee file? It very well could be. And so a lot of companies will have policies and procedures around what copies and how you can review your employee file. I highly encourage employees to do that, right? Especially in the cases where you may have been brought forth something that you disagreed with, that you wanted to make sure did not land in your record.
So should anyone feel, and this is the question that was raised when I was talking to someone about this. You don't agree, you want to write an addendum.
Hmm.
People want to do that, but there's a lot of fear because there could be that whole
Right.
retaliation thing that you're talking about. So if you
Absolutely.
don't sign it, there could be some retaliatory action
Hmm.
against you. If you write an addendum, somebody could retaliate, because the way I feel, or the way I see it, you know, HR is not on my side,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's just like if HR is involved, it's not good. It's no bueno.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? But that's not always the case, right?
Hmm.
HR is embedded to be neutral and non-biased. And so as a support for the organization and the employees, kind of the gatekeeper, right? And so it really, really, really depends on the situation, but for the most part, Erin, I would highly encourage employees to take control of their own destinies in their roles with their employers, right? Read your handbook. And you talk about how passionate I am because I love reading. I love the understanding of how things should operate. And so I may do a deeper dive and understand more than the average person, but you still got to read those policies, right? You could be violating a policy that you may not know that you're violating because you got a suck orientation program. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, when you're given that handbook or that collective bargaining agreement, if you're in a union, you need to read it
Hmm.
and you need to understand it. And it is HR as a partner that helps you get to understand that information. So I say you got to take control.
Yeah.
If your destiny is to grow with an organization, stay a high performer, and really, really, really chart your own path in your career at organizations. These are just some of the steps that you would take in any event you're given a review that you don't agree with.
Right. So I always ask this question in the moment of when you were given those pages and it said those things. Do you feel like you would have done anything differently if you had it all to do again? Would you do it the same way?
I probably would not. I would probably do it the exact same way.
Yeah.
Because experience has taught me over the years is to really, especially as a triple threat, is to check my emotions and know that I am in control of my own destiny. And so for me in that moment, and that slight moment, I allowed um that frustration to build up in me because I disagreed what was on that paper. But what I did know once I left that meeting was that did not this did not fully articulate who I am
Right.
and my work that I've performed here. And so for me, that gave me kind of the gusto, the energy to go in to write the rebuttal, right? For me to fact check, as the news says, on things that were illustrated in this review that were false. And so I did that. And I knew in that moment, right? And elevating it to our corporate entity. So beyond my president, because I was just hot. I was like, you know what?
Well, yeah.
I'm not just only going to deal with you on this rebuttal. I'm going to make sure that I'm also talking with the president of the parent of the entire organization about this because I was hired by him. This was a new leader I was being rated by. I failed to say that. So
Somebody that
um,
you had no history or rapport
had no
with.
history, no rapport,
Mm-hmm.
and so that in of itself was just different. And so fast forward to again me typing the rebuttal. I did do that. I asked for the time to be able to review it. Had scheduled the meeting to sit down to talk to him about the rebuttal. And the next thing I knew is that I was getting a separate meeting notice with the president and the legal counsel on a different issue. And so had this virtual meeting with the president and legal counsel on this issue to end up being offered a severance.
Wow. So nothing to do with what they said in the review?
Nothing to do with the review.
Was it something that was more recent, or was it something?
So what I was told was a bunch of lies, but essentially is they disagree with the leadership, my leadership of HR, and they severance me because they want to bring in their own people.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation.
So that is a whole nother conversation because we didn't even get to sit down to walk through the review is my point. Before I could get there, I got to severance. So this is the fear of why people, don't report and refuse to sign. They just kind of go with the flow on
Right.
reviews and not take a stand on, what's right, what should be factually written in your performance, an effective review.
I like what you said about you had to check your emotions in that moment, because I think that's so hard for so many of us to do. You were obviously upset. You were thrown off by the information and the feedback that you were given because no one had ever communicated this to you before. And it was communicated to you by a person that you really just didn't have any rapport with. So I think the checking your emotions takeaway is huge, because we can be very emotional, and we can be very I don't want to say that in a bad way, but we just can,
We
want to
We
talk,
can be.
we want to tell them and get them told and tell them off, and that's like your first go-to, but you can't do
Right.
that because then that's playing into the aggressive, the loud, the things.
Yeah.
So it's just like you got to just pull your shit together, if you will, and
Right.
go somewhere and get your thoughts right and your mind right. And I think
Mhm.
that's a huge takeaway. You've given us, and that was one of my questions, but we kind of got into it. You've given us some really good takeaways. So not only did you, first takeaway is to prevent getting to this point is documentation. Document
Absolutely.
things, keep records. If somebody asks you to do anything, or whatever it is, keep that CYA journal, as I called it. Keep that, keep it on your phone, keep it somewhere. And as somebody who just lost all of her information on her phone, keep it somewhere where it can't crash and you can't lose it.
Sure.
Keep it private, but keep that information, and don't slack on that, because when you need to go to that information, I think you're not going to remember. You're not going to
That's
remember.
correct.
You think you
That's
will,
correct.
but you're not. You're not going to remember on January 14th, 2025 at 3:11 p.m. Dude told me this happened, da 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 da. If you get laid off, you're not going to have access to those emails anymore.
That's right. They're going to cut it off.
Right.
They're going to cut it off. And so you do need to keep it separate. Do not use your own computer, your work computer, for this type of information. So for me, I would a lot of times kick stuff to my personal email. And that is legitimate, from a legal standpoint, is okay, right? And
It is. So they can see that
they
you
can
did
see that.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And that's okay. Because your attorney will ask you, if it gets to that point, what evidence, what artifacts do you have?
Right.
What information can you show me? EEOC will ask the same. Missouri Human Rights Commission, any other regulatory body that is investigating a complaint will ask you for that detailed information. So it is imperative that as much as you can, try to keep good records. And I think I know in my situation that is still very active and open right now, that's going to be my saving grace, right? And the fact that you typically, HR people are those that usually know where the bodies are buried, especially if you're really, really effective HR. So for me, as a practitioner, I get in, I've been doing this as a consultant for, over 8 years. So a lot of times I go into organizations to fix what's broken. So I don't really have a lot of time to figure out how to get to point A and point B. I've got to get there very quickly. So my need to build relationships fast and trust fast is essential to my business. So for me, I go into an organization and with my
You have to
experience,
assert yourself into the situation to make
very
sure that
fast,
you're taking care of business,
quickly.
which,
Absolutely.
that has now been labeled aggressive, right?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so you have that, the takeaway of documentation, the takeaway of holding yourself together, keeping those emotions in check when somebody says something sideways to you, because they will, right? Excusing yourself from the situation to go gather your thoughts,
which is okay. That's
okay to do.
That's
right?
okay. That's
and then coming back to the situation on your terms, right?
On your terms.
I also forgot to say, if your manager or whomever you're reporting to is not meeting with you on a regular basis, you
schedule the meetings.
Right.
You do not wait for managers to schedule meetings with you, right? When I talked about taking control of your destiny in your role, that is a true tale of how you can do that, right?
And if they don't do a written something to you for that, then follow up with a synopsis, follow up with a recap of what went down in that meeting.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
No,
all
this
the time.
Really good information. I think a lot of people, and let me just say this too. Like, if you don't agree with the review that was given to you, what you need to do is don't sign it. You can write that you disagree. You can add an addendum, correct?
So that's correct. And it is, and require that it is a part of your personnel file. I want to note that, because sometimes those papers will get disheveled and get disattached from those reviews. If they're electronic reviews, like built into a CRM system, some type of system like ADP, we have the ability to upload. So don't let employers disguise that you don't have the right to add an addendum, to your review, to make it part of your permanent personnel file. You can require that.
And which goes back to what you said also about requesting to review your profile.
Yes.
Got to do that. So you gave us some good takeaways, because you can request that. So say you said you needed to add this addendum to your review and they didn't do it, or you gave it to somebody and they didn't do it. You're like, no.
Keep your copy.
Yes.
Keep your copies.
Yes.
Keep your copies.
And make sure that stuff is up there. No. This is good information. I think there's just so much fear, and everybody just needs to get their money. They want to get paid. And there is fear. It is a scary thing. It's hurtful that we have to deal with this so much more often than our white counterparts, even our Asian counterparts, would have to deal with this. But knowing how to prepare ourselves and deal with this stuff, you've given us some great tools and takeaway for how to deal with this, because this is something that is just so common, right? So
very common.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this. I plan to talk about this on the podcast a lot more in the future, because, I want to be able to give women a way to survive, which is really what this is. It's all about surviving out here.
Yeah, Black Women's Survival Guide.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And anything that I can, I like the saying, reach one, teach one. So anything that I, in this, brain of mine over these 20 some years of HR can help an employee or an employer become better in the space of DE&I or effective performance reviews or anything that falls within my wheelhouse, I am at your service.
Well, that just leads me to tell everyone how they can find you.
Yes, you can reach me on LinkedIn, the MCM Group LLC. My website is www.themcmgroupusa.com. You can also reach me on Facebook at the MCM Group LLC as well.
Awesome, Monique. Well, this has been awesome. You've given us some really good information. This is
Yeah, and I want you to
super
shout out
helpful.
this shirt,
Shout
minding
out.
my own black business.
Yes, ma'am. I need that. Where did you get that?
It was gifted to me because I love all Black Pride things, so it was gifted to me. And as you can see, it's like the school days kind
Yes,
of color, so I love it.
absolutely. Yes, I love that.
And my
Okay.
queen sitting behind me.
Monique is always getting stuff. She's everywhere. She's everywhere, people. Well, we really appreciate it, you guys. And yeah, I'll put all of Monique's information below this video if you are listening. I'm sorry, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put all of her information in the notes. And again, thank you so much, Monique. And yes, you guys. And
thank you so much for having me, Erin.
You are welcome. And we will see you guys in the next video.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.